Hello, everybody. This is Coach Shafto. Today we're working on IXL 6th grade FF2, and we're learning how to calculate the area of rectangles and squares. If you need review on calculating area, there is a link in the description at the bottom of this assignment that will allow you to get some quick review. Your goal is to get to 70. If you want an extra challenge, you can go all the way to 100. When we look at this first question on IXL, it says, what is the area? And we know that the area of a square or a rectangle is simply length times width. In a different situation, it could also be side times side if it's a square, but that's a very specific example. So if we're taking the length times the width, in this case, the length is 8, times the width, which is 6, which is going to be equal to 48 feet squared. The reason that we squared it is because we're functionally counting the squares inside of this rectangle. So I would have basically done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then gone over here 6 times. And then we're counting the squares because we're counting the inside. It's the area on the inside that we're counting. And that's 2 dimensions, so it's squared. Next question says, what is the area of this square? It only gives us one side, so we would have length times width, which was going to be equal to the area. And I use a capital A for area because that's traditionally what has been used. So my length is 4, and if I fill this in, I'm also going to have 4. So I have 4 times 4 is equal to 16 feet squared. And the next question asks a little bit differently. It says, what's the missing length? So if I have length times width is equal to area, we know that the area is 240 centimeters squared. And my length is going to be 16. So now I have to say, what is the width? And I don't know that. But a way that I can calculate it, if you remember from equations, is that I can divide by 16. So now I have a 16 in the numerator and a 16 in the denominator. This leaves me with a W by itself. And I divide by 16 on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and use a calculator to do this. So I have 240 divided by 16, and that's equal to 15. So my answer here, W equals 15 centimeters, and it's centimeters because it's only in one dimension. It's length as opposed to area. And the next problem is similar. It says that we have length times width, which is equal to area, and it gives me the area 140 kilometers squared. And so here I've got 14 and U. So I've got 14 U is equal to 140. Now I can divide on both sides, divide by 14 because this is U times 14, and the opposite of multiplying is dividing. This gives me a 14 in the numerator and a 14 in the denominator, which cancels to give me one whole U. And if I divide by 14 here, that 14 and that 14 cancel, leaving me with 10 kilometers. If I jump to some of the higher levels, it starts to get into decimals. You're doing the exact same thing. I would use a calculator. So here I have 4.1 times 4.1, because this is length times width, is equal to the area. And so if I'm going to calculate that, I'm going to say 4.1, and I'm actually going to use this squared button right here because when I do a number times itself, it's squared. So that gives me 16.81 inches squared. In this last question, it says, what is the missing length? And so if I had length times width, which is equal to area, I would have 30.2 times T is my width here, but I'm going to use a W since it's the width, is equal to 1,023.78. And I'm not going to write the centimeter squared because I don't have room. So again, we're doing the same process. This is W times 30.2, so I'm going to use a fraction bar to divide by 30.2. And I do that on both sides of the equal sign. This gives me a 30.2 in the numerator and a 30.2 in the denominator, which is going to give me one whole W. And if I use a calculator to divide this, I'm going to end up with 1,023.78 divided by 30.2. And this gives me an answer of 33.9 centimeters. If you have further questions, remember to check out that help document shown in the description of this video. Remember, your goal is to get to 70, and as a challenge, you can go all the way to 100.